Hey there, super sober heroes. It's Steve, host of Gay A Podcast, here for episode 177 as we dive into sobriety, apps, and dating. I am happy to report that as of today, I have 992 days sober and am very excited to hit 1,000 next Thursday, one day at a time. And I am grateful for the evolution of my gratitude practices. For a while, I was doing gratitude pretty much when we did the episodes, as well as thinking occasionally, like maybe once a week, I would reply back to a friend who sent their gratitude towards me with some gratitude back. But it wasn't a daily practice for the longest time. I would say it was in my first year of sobriety, and I lost it somewhere after that first year. And I've had friends that send it to me regularly, along with friends that send things like daily readings. And I always feel motivated by them. So I don't really know why for the longest time, as I was making rules and excuses over things, why I didn't do it. But I know that in the past couple of weeks, I've really enjoyed doing gratitude lists for my sober friends. And in the last week, I tried something new, which is I've actually sent my gratitude in the morning to a couple non-sober friends. And I know you're all like, gasp, like, do we do that? And I don't know whether that's something that we do, but it's something that I do now. And especially once I kind of explained to my friends, they're like, this is something that sober people do, and it's awesome. And I thought I would share it with the people that I love and support me in my daily life who aren't sober. They love it, like to the point where now I have friends that are not in the program who are sending me back their daily gratitude and saying how much like they look forward to it. And I'm glad that I tried it. Did it after seeing, we talked about it in the Patreon episode with Kevin a couple weeks back, but in one of my group coaching sessions afterwards, we took turns sharing with another person like 2 to 3 minutes of straight just gratitude, of saying things that you were grateful for. And it's interesting, like an experience of not only being able to express and find your own gratitude every morning, which we've talked in episodes, and like I believe it's a great sobriety practice, but also sharing with others, and the being able to hear other people's gratitude actually makes you feel more grateful about what you have in life as well. So it's not like, at first I was like, well, if I send gratitude to non-sober people, they're going to think that I'm dying, because who does that other than people in the programs? And I only think I had one who was like concerned for me before I was like, no, it's okay. This is a thing. Like, that's a good thing. But yeah, I don't know. So like, yeah, I thought it was interesting how well it's been going, sharing it with non-sober people. So I don't know whether you all have ever tried with your gratitude. First of all, if you're not doing daily gratitude and you're having trouble finding things that you're grateful for in life, doing the daily gratitude is certainly a great way to get the ball rolling, starting with understanding and being grateful for the things that you have. And if you share it with sober people, that's great. If you've never shared it with non-sober people, I challenge you this week to share your gratitude with someone that you love who isn't in the program, and see how it goes, because it's a really cool, awesome experience for me that I've been enjoying. And before we get into the topic of the week for dating and apps, I also want to share that I had a great weekend away at Disney, which was fun. And I've also been doing some great coaching and receiving coaching that's been really helpful with me with breakthroughs. I know that with this rebrand coming, and it's been going on, and it's been awesome having you all share how you're feeling about it. It's been also nice knowing that, this is something that means a lot to me, that I get to put my all into, while also having it not define like who I am as a person, has been very helpful as well. And keeping this podcast, as well as the coaching that I'm doing on the side, like separate from the podcast, while having them feed from each other. It's been a really cool experience kind of figuring it all out. And I figured it out in a way that makes sense for me right now. So I'm very excited to be able to be bringing you the Super Sober Hero show starting next week, as we do the launch or relaunch or reboot of 2.0, however you want to call it. But I will just be reframing it as Gay A, the Super Sober Hero show. So when you see that next week, know that that is just the relaunching or rebranding, just because I've been talking about how important it is for me to not only realize that the sober people in my lives I find are all superheroes, but that also we're all superheroes or sober heroes, if you want to call them, when we look at how awesome we have this like unlimited potential that we're finally tapping into now that we're living sober lives. So I look forward to examining and sharing stories and voices through that lens going forward. But before we do there, let's jump into dating. Last week, we talked about apps, and it led to a great discussion with a couple of my guests about not only the sober tracking apps that we've now talked extensively about, but also the apps that you download for other purposes, like dating, and what that experience of dating as a sober person in the apps can be like. I know that in general, if you ask single people what dating apps in period is like, a lot of them come at it with negative perceptions, and you might be feeling that as well. So I want to share that, first of all, people that feel negative about dating apps, it seems like that's something that happens to both sober and non-sober people. So I know that they both have their own set of challenges, I'm sure, but we also have some great positive stories and uplifting motivation today from some guests, many of which you're familiar with and expecting, like Danielle and Mark are back, as well as Gabriel. So I'm very excited to share their 3 clips later. But I figured as I was going through successful sober app dating stories and what that all looks like before, after, during, and today, I realized that I actually do know of a experience of dating through apps working out and in time sobriety leading to dates that are a lot more pleasant. And that is me with my husband. While we dated through my active addiction, I was like in one of my more sober before it got really bad moments when we met. And then we dated through and got married. And then in my addiction happened or progressed, and then I got sober, and now we have awesome dates. And so it's a different experience than like logging on to the apps as a sober person, and we will get to that with our guests afterwards. But I also thought that, especially seeing this, how some people listen to this that have relationships, they might be able to relate to this, as well as also give you hope that, like, if you haven't found someone on apps, if I was able to find my husband on the apps while I was going through my active addiction, there's hope for anyone to find someone out there for them that's perfect, like my husband's perfect for me. So hang in there. There is hope, and hopefully our little interview that he was nice enough to agree to helps inspire some hope. So I will pass it over to my past self from yesterday. Hey there, everyone. It's Steve, and I'm still in my office, but I have a guest here.
Hi, everyone.
This is my husband, Steven. And so he is on because while researching dating and app stories, I remembered that we met on apps, didn't we?
We sure did.
We met on more than one app, didn't we?
Over a period of years.
Yes. And so I always love to start off how we like moved 1 or 2 days apart from different states without knowing each other.
We did. It was the end of September, and I had moved down, and I got here on a Wednesday, and you got here on Friday, and didn't know each other ahead of time. Both moved down. Our families were down here. They didn't know each other. So just a big because we don't believe in coincidence.
Yes. And then pretty much, I would say it was within our first 30 to 60 days down here, we found each other on the big G.
It was like 2 weeks.
2 weeks. So even faster, we found each other on the big G. And how did that work for you and us?
It didn't. We did not like each other at all. I don't remember what specifically about you I didn't like at the time. I just remember that it didn't spark, it didn't click, and I was like, well, okay, next.
Yeah, I definitely don't remember like any sort of strong dislike or any sort of negative feelings towards you, but it definitely was like, not for me, or like,
yeah,
not right now, or whatever, mm-hmm. You know, nothing much. But it was funny because years later, 2.5 years, I'm horrible.
Yeah, it was a while, and
it was back in my addictions, so horrible at the time. But yes.
But what was funny is like 2 weeks after we had said no, I went to see a psychic at Gay Pride, and the psychic was saying, I was asking about love, and the psychic was like, the person that you will spend your life with is someone you already know, but they're not in your life right now.
Yes.
And well, there you go.
Lo and behold, we did eventually meet. And I was looking at logos to see earlier what app, and I'm 90% sure we met on OkCupid.
It was either OkCupid or Plenty of Fish, so we call it.
I think it was OkCupid because that was the one that does the scoring when I don't think Plenty of Fish does that. So okay, it was OkCupid we later met on, and we were, 99% match? Or
96%. It was high.
It was a high percent. If I was a gambling person, I would have bet on those odds.
Yes.
That we would at least get along pretty well. And
we did. Immediately we started talking, and we hit it off. And we chatted for over a month without seeing each other in person.
Yeah, and I know that was a period in my life where personally, I was living with my parents at the time, correct?
Me too.
And that, along with other various reasons, my drinking was at an all-time low. So I would say that, when did you notice that my drinking wasn't the same way of drinking of other people you might have dated in the past?
So it was 2 different events. One of them, we went over to a friend's house, and you got fall down drunk, and which I was just like, oh, well, that happens, because people do. I mean, I can't say that I haven't. And then you were living down in Venice with what's his face, and it was his birthday, I think, and you didn't know when to stop, and that was what I first noticed.
Yes, and I never learned when to stop. They also do say in various rooms and programs that alcoholism is a progressive and fatal disease. Do you think that if I hadn't stopped, that it ever would have gotten better, or would you agree that it was progressively getting worse?
It was progressively getting worse.
Yes, but luckily I did find a couple solutions, a handful that worked for me, and I have been sober now almost 1,000 days next Thursday.
Congratulations.
So I know pretty much right away. My first week sober, I went up to New York for a wedding, which I don't recommend for early sobriety for anyone. It was a bad idea.
Traveling and a wedding
and flights and everything. But through a series of higher power aha moments, I did end up making it through that experience. I came back determined and capable, and felt like I could do anything. When did you, but at the same time, I can imagine for you it's probably later, because you had already heard me for years saying that I would never again. No, it's
I didn't have full belief that you were going to do it. I have faith in you at all times, in you as a person, but I didn't have faith at that moment that you were going to stick it out. When it actually turned for me was when you started doing the online meetings, and you were doing them every day. And I was seeing the dedication you were putting into it. And I was like, oh, this is for real.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the turning point for me, was when you were doing 90 meetings in 90 days.
And then pretty soon the podcast was born shortly afterwards. And it's been a wild journey. What would you say has been our best date since my sobriety?
There's been so many. I mean, let's take this past weekend. We were in Orlando at the Magic Kingdom, and it was probably one of the best Disney experiences I've ever had. And that was our first time going since you got sober. And it was truly, truly amazing.
Yeah, it was definitely nice going through the parks and not thinking about alcohol or having that play a factor in our day or role. Not I would ever really get drunk or sloppy when we went to Disney, except maybe an Epcot time or two. But even then the amount of mental or emotional bandwidth, or the fact that I would see people drinking and be like, oh, why can they drink all day and I can't? And then like I'm glad that like it wasn't like my first year of sobriety that I went to an experience like this, because there were also like being in so many small crowds. There were times when we were together where we would walk by someone and like, oh, they have been drinking all day. It's just coming off their pores.
Oh, yeah.
And like I don't think I would have been able to enjoy myself as much like in the first like 6 months to a year with those experiences. But with the amount of sobriety I have and the different programs and everything that we have together at this point, I would feel like it was a pretty awesome day.
Yeah, it was.
How is it going on dates now? Better or different than it was before?
It's better because, and being honest, back then I would sometimes try to keep up with you in drinking just so that I wasn't like more sober, and like I felt that, if I was a little buzzed too, then you being more buzzed wouldn't be as much of a thing. And now whenever we go out, it's about the conversation and being with each other and having the amazing food.
Yeah.
And I prefer that.
Yes, especially when that food has cheese in it. Oh, cheese. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for sharing with our listeners a little bit of our sober dating experience. Any final thoughts or words?
I'm just really proud of you, and I'm proud of us for where we are now from where we were then. And I feel that honestly, you could do anything when you put your mind to it, and I've seen what you can do, and I'm very proud.
I'm excited to see what another 1,000 days brings for us both.
I agree.
All right. Well, thank you.
I love you.
Love you too. All right. And we are going to pass it along now to a couple other friends of the podcast that also have more recent sober app dating experiences. I have to admit that I am very happy not only in this marriage, but the fact that neither one of us have to deal with those apps anymore today.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So let's hear from the brave souls that are venturing out into the world of sober dating apps today and what that experience is like for them.
Hi, my name is Gabriel, and I'm an alcoholic. Yeah, when it comes to the sober apps or dating apps in general, I don't have a ton of experience, only because I have addictions to other substances that keep me from being on them, if you catch my drift. They are very triggering. So I do have a cute story from actually Facebook Messenger and social media. I met this guy online. He had seen me on a mutual friend's Facebook page, and he liked my sense of humor, my personality online. And yeah, we hit it off. We ended up DMing a lot and kept missing each other as far as meeting up. And then one day, he asked me to come meet him for coffee here in Hillcrest in San Diego. And I did. Nothing big. I show up very casual. And this may sound shallow, but when I met him, he looked a lot hotter in person than he did in his pictures. And yeah, his pictures didn't do him justice. So I was like, oh, okay, this is a plot twist. So we ended up hanging out for like 2 or 3 hours that day, just walking around Balboa Park and talking, and still not disclosing my recovery or my sober status. Then the time came where we were going to have a date, and I was really stressing about what to say. And some friends said, you just got to bite the bullet and tell him. So I called him, followed him, told him, and he just giggled. And he said, why are you giggling? And he said, I am too. Turns out he was in recovery as well and had been multiple years sober. So very big relief, but also I felt silly for him making it such a big deal. But, it is what it is, right? No judgment, even on myself. So it was great. We ended up staying together for about 2.5, 3 years. Great guy. I learned a lot from the relationship, but also taught me that, while it's okay to disclose whenever I choose to, but I don't have to lead with it either. I don't have to lead with my recovery and my sobriety. It's part of who I am. It's not who I am. So yeah, it was just very refreshing. And I know that when I do get out there again and I do try, that there is hope and that I can do it. And it doesn't have to be a scary thing. So, and takes counsel from other people who have done it before. That's what helped me too. So anyway, hope that helps. Hope you have a great day. And remember, you are enough.
What apps do you use the most?
Right now, I'm on Tinder and Her. I had previously used OkCupid, but found the platform was a little clunky and glitchy. So I've had a fair amount of interactions on those. I've been contemplating getting on other ones, but I don't know. We'll see. Stay tuned.
Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of times when people get on dating apps sober, there's a lot of concerns over like what people will think. The same way when we get sober, we worry about what that's going to be like in real life. What kind of positive experiences have you had sharing your sobriety on those apps?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've been more than pleasantly surprised at my experience so far. So I've met, and I'm sure people swipe by me that are like, nope, because I put it right out there, right in the profile. I say I'm sober. I don't like on on her. I think on her you can just write not for me with alcohol, but on Tinder you can put sober. So I use the S word because I don't have time for folks that's going to be an issue with. So I'm pretty transparent, and then I have it in my profile. But I've been really, really surprised. I'm also comfortable dating people that do drink. I'm a little less with cannabis. That's a whole nother kind of the difference between those two. But for the most part, people are, the people that I connect with are encouraging and find it, even if they still drink, they're still open to the idea and understand it and definitely have a most of them have either known somebody else who's been in recovery or sober, or just kind of have an understanding that alcohol is not a positive influence in a lot of people's lives. So I've been happy so far. I'm still single, so there's that. Or I'm
Yeah,
single again I should say, but it's life.
you're a beautiful person. I know your time will and your
Mm.
person will come. But I mean, at the same time, it sounds like you've had some really positive experiences putting yourself out there. What kind of advice would you give to someone who's just getting on this, like the apps dating as a sober person? In addition to, it sounds like you and a couple other people I'm talking to say, like, put it out there, just be very clear about it. But any other advice?
Yeah, I think the more solid you are in your sobriety, I mean, if your sobriety is important, which hopefully it is, I just feel like it's better to just be transparent, because the reality is you don't want to get into a relationship with someone who's gonna, you know, not understand or try to be encouraging. So I think it's it's important to just kind of be solid with yourself in that. And you'll, like I said, you'll be pleasantly surprised. I've just had so many people, even if I haven't actually like dated them, just interacting with them, that are like, that's so great, that's so encouraging, or they just there's more people out there than you think that are going to be understanding and have a positive experience. And that just sort of, obviously, like with the whole dating thing, that makes you feel better about yourself. But for me, I just know, like, that's got to come first, and it's a non-negotiable for me. It's negotiable for me. I say to people, once I get interacting with them, like, I met somebody on a dating app, and like, this was like a month ago, and I was kind of in a weird space with my kids. So I was like, actually, I can't really date right now, but like, let's just meet as friends. And we actually just went out to karaoke the other night. And then the next step for me is, like, when you're actually going to do something like that, where there could be alcohol, I also put it out there, like, hey, like, I'm sober, but do what you need to do. And that's up to each person. But for me, I feel very fortunate. I'm totally comfortable being in a bar. I'm totally comfortable being with other people that are drinking. I always say to people, the only thing I will not do is just can I say a swear word?
You can say whatever you'd like.
I'm not going to sit my ass on a bar stool all day and just, that's if the activity is drinking, that's not my thing. But karaoke, dancing, yes, count me in. I'm there for that. So I think it's important, before you literally get out there and interact with people, like, what are you comfortable with? What can you do? And do you know that you can extract yourself from a situation if you feel like your sobriety is at risk, and that the other person may or may not support you in that? And that's something you'll have to be ready to work through.
Yeah. But that is great advice for sure. And also, I was wondering if you could only, because I know a lot of times when people first are trying anything, it's overwhelming almost the number of apps there are. And eventually, if you're becoming a pro at it, I'm sure you'll download more and more apps. But if you could only open one dating app for the next 90 days, what app would that be?
Ooh, well, that's a really hard. I think I would choose, of the two I'm on. I mean, I definitely wouldn't go back to OK Cupid. I'm curious about trying. I think there's an app called Tammy. But for the two I'm on, I think I like her I like Tinder because you can choose sober, but I think I like her because you can choose to be friends with people. So it's kind of a nice, like, okay. And I actually I have a trans man friend that I met on her. And we like hang out, we go dancing, we'd like go to the movies. We have like a bromance, which is so fun. So he was on there looking for women, and that's kind of an interesting thing. And actually, coincidentally, he doesn't drink. He doesn't identify as sober, but so I like her for that reason, that you can kind of be friends, and then that's sort of like a middle ground of like, okay, I don't like, there's a lot of things in your profile I like, and we could, and there are people that are like just looking for friends, and we all know friends can turn into more. you
Yeah.
know, you just never really, like, some people are really clear about what they're looking for. Some people are sort of, for me, it kind of comes and goes. Like some days I'm like, yes, I want to find a person. Other days I'm like, good Lord, just me and my dog for the rest of my life. I'm fine.
I was gonna say, if you have a dog, it makes it easier. Yes, I
It
can.
does.
And what about dating apps? First of all, what dating apps do you use when you use them?
All right. So I have a very love-hate relationship with dating apps, right? They did not exist while I was using and drinking.
Yeah.
So I don't have that experience with them, right? But there's something about all of them, right? Whether it's Hinge or Tinder or, like ones that are supposed to be more traditional dating apps or ones that are more like instant satisfaction apps, right? Where the common thread for me is they're only as good as my spiritual condition,
Mhm.
right? So I can, if I'm going on to them looking for validation, I'm going to find that validation, or I'm going to walk away from it feeling really crappy, right? Because I didn't get what I went there to look for, which was just validation. I am also at this point in my life, 18 years sober, 53 years old, where it's like, shit or get off the pot. Do you want to have a conversation or not? Like, are we having this conversation? Are we not having this conversation? Do you want to, like, are you in this to actually meet somebody? Are you not? Like, I don't have time for all that back and forth nonsense. And the like, I liked you, you like me. Let's keep playing sort of, like I think on Tinder it actually says like keep swiping for more matches. And it's like, is this a video game? Or are we actually trying to like make connections here?
Yeah.
So I may be the jaded old bitch, but for me, I haven't had a ton of luck, right? But at the end of the day, I think what's important for me to remember is how I approach any of those apps with a sober sensibility or not will really determine whether it takes over, right? Am I going to sit here scrolling all the doodah day? Or, am I going to walk away from this with my dignity intact or feeling like crap? Right. And that's up to me. It's about how I approach it. It's about whether I'm in stinking thinking or like taking the next right action. So, yeah, I think it really, for me, it depends where I'm at and how I'm stepping into that arena.
Yeah, I can certainly understand how that would help. Now, when your spiritual condition is at its best and you are at your most sober, do you have any good recollections or recounts of positive experiences on the apps where someone respected your sobriety or was cool about it to inspire a new person?
Yeah, I definitely have had experience. Most of the experiences where, I've said to someone that I'm sober, and I place that in all of so I'm very upfront with my sobriety. It is in any profile that I create on any sort of dating or hookup app, because I don't want to, I'm never going to put myself in a situation where I'm going to show up and something's happening that I'm like, wait a minute, I can't be here. And I've had people say, oh, I don't know that I could date a sober person. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. Right. Or I've had people go, I really respect that. Like, that's amazing. Good for you. I know somebody who's sober or whatever. And I think they've really kind of tuned in on a lot of those apps where, I think on Hinge, it's very detailed about like, how much you drink, how much, do you do drugs? Do you do pot? Like it's very clear. So like as you're scrolling through, you're like, oh, okay, if this person was honest, that might be a little more than I can handle, you know? And that just helps out. I mean, also, here's a hint. If their profile picture is them with a beer in their hand,
Probably not Mr. Right.
they probably really like their beer.
That's also a good point. Yes. If that is forward facing, yes.
Yeah, I'm like, well, thank you for your honesty. I don't think so.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much on these hot takes. I know that our listener, I'm excited like to have more voices on each episode. So you always have a home here for sharing your voice and your story.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's great
All
to be
right.
here.
Yeah, thank you.
All right.
And I'm back. So I hope you enjoyed hearing from Danielle, Gabriel, and Mark. It's always a pleasure catching up with all three of them. They are definitely part of the podcast family here at Gay A. So thank you, all three of you. And thank you, listeners, for hearing these different experiences. I'm sure that you've found some great new perspectives or things to think about. One final food for thought, if I may, is overall, one thing I've learned with being an entrepreneur and going through all the coaching and receiving and giving coaching and doing a lot of like self-help and self-care and motivational things right now is that your mindset plays a huge role into almost everything that you do in your life. And I feel like that same thing can be said when it turns to apps. You know, when we log into sober apps, we were talking last week, if you're logging into the sober apps for motivation, you're going to get motivation because you get to see your day count and you get to see how exciting it is, you know, but with dating apps, if you are, as you're booting it up, preparing and ready for it to be a garbage dumpster fire of an experience, there's a very good chance, I would say, that that is exactly what you will find. And it's even possible that in searching for that dumpster fire that you are anticipating and subtly, unawarely manifesting for yourself, you might miss out on having a conversation with someone who you might not normally have given a chance. I know, like I said, my husband and I met on Grindr and we didn't hit it off. We had to have like a different app with an algorithm, like force us together by saying like, you idiots are like 96% compatible. Like you should get over the initial, oh, well, this isn't exactly my normal thing, and like go for it because it worked out for me. And just go into these apps knowing that anything could happen. And the more that you're looking for the positives and not the negatives, I hope that that brings you a little more success. I'd love to hear what you think of sober dating on the apps. If you still have more positive success stories, we'd love to hear them. I can always share them on the socials as we go through the week, as we are preparing for next week's relaunch of the Sober Hero Show. So make sure that you are following me on all the socials at Gay A Podcast for new content. I'm being more active on all of them. That includes not only the Instagram, my good old favorite, but also TikTok and Facebook and LinkedIn and pretty much like everything. I think that I even have a Pinterest. So you can now pin my topics or my episodes. It's why not be everywhere, people? So I am here to make sure that wherever you are listening or watching, that you get to hear the message, not only that I have, but also that people like Danielle, Mark, and Gabriel have. So again, thank you to my guests for coming on this week. And thank you to all of you for watching and listening to another episode of Gay A. It's been a pleasure, and I look forward to seeing you all next week. Stay sober, friends.